Hey folks, I'm going to tell you my story. I'm going to say things I've never said before. This is my memoir. I spent 28 years believing I was a monster. I believed it because I was branded by it in a dim hotel room at 7 years old. I believed it because I was hunted by a shotgun in LA. I believed it because I tried to drown the shame in a crack pipe. But mostly I believed it because our culture told me that unless you fit a certain mold, you don't actually matter. So, over the next 6 episodes, I'm taking you into the places most people are too terrified to look. We're going from the sun-bleached dirt of a Tennessee trailer lot to the fires of LA riots and finally to a hospital room at Vanderbilt where something happened, something so traumatic, it shattered my world and changed how I see this country forever. This isn't a performance. 80% of what I'm about to tell you is absolutely raw, bleeding truth. This is my life. This is the weight I've carried. I'm going to show you how white supremacy, elitism, and fat phobia are integrated into a single machine. A machine designed to make us trade our souls for a fake sense of status. We think these are weapons we use against each other. But I'm here to tell you it's a suicide pact we've made with ourselves. We are overdosing on our own pride. And the fire we started is finally coming for us all. If you've ever felt unloved or unlovable, or if you've ever wondered why our country feels like it's falling apart from the inside out, you need to hear this. My name is Dixon, and I'm not the monster. I am the witness, and this is the Supremacy Suicide Pact. The name of my series is called Love a Big Man. Episode 1 starts now.
Episode 1, Branded at 7. The Fat Monster of Waverly. Most people think they are watching a country fall apart. I'm here to tell you that you are watching a culture overdose on its own poison. I spent 28 years believing I was a monster, only to realize I was just a witness to the greatest soul trade in American history. If you think you're one of the good ones, this story is specifically for you. White America is currently in the middle of a slow-motion, self-destructive overdose. We are intoxicated by a brand of hatred that we think makes us powerful. But it's actually an acid that eats the container from the inside out. Bigotry isn't just a weapon we use against others. It is a suicide pact we make with ourselves. I know, because I spent 28 years being consumed by that same fire before I realized that the heat was coming from my own heart. My childhood was etched into the packed down, sun-bleached dirt of a trailer lot in Waverly, Tennessee. We lived in a double-wide, a thin-walled, fragile box that hummed with the frequency of kept secrets and unvented rage. By the time I was a young boy, I was already massive. And by the time I was an older teenager, I was 6'4", a physical presence that felt out of place in such a small world. The neighborhood kids didn't see a boy. They saw Double-Wide Dixon, a nickname that felt like a life sentence. Even as a young kid, I was different. I always had a lot of sensitivity and very deep thoughts. I was never very good at superficial talk or superficial thoughts. While other kids were playing on the surface, I was feeling everything at a profound level. I've always been a creative, deep, and highly empathetic person, and that sensitivity made the environment I grew up in feel even more abrasive. Inside that trailer, the air was heavy and stagnant. My stepdad was a narcissist, and like many narcissists, he had a very fake public personality. To the world, he seemed kind, gentle, and sweet. But in private, when I was growing up, he was a cruel, abusive, and overbearing man. He did have his good moments when I was young, but he conducted a daily ritual of dehumanization. He was obsessed with me and my mom's food, acting as a warden over our bodies, shaming us constantly for the space we took up. He was viciously condescending to anyone overweight, calling women cows, and treating my size as a personal failure. It's important to know that today, our relationship has blossomed. He has become much gentler and kinder as an older man, and we have a deep mutual respect. But back then, the damage was being done daily to a very sensitive boy. My mom was a beautiful soul. Before the darkness hit, She was a vibrant girl, full of life. She loved music with a passion. She used to even sing opera before she got sick. But around the age of 20, everything changed. That was when the schizophrenia took hold. Despite the illness, she was quick to laugh, quick to be loud, and quick to tell you the truth. She never told a lie. She faced her mental and physical illnesses with an incredible courage and a deep faith in God. She is the biggest example of courage and faith I have ever seen. She was humble, she had a great laugh, and she would always laugh at herself as well. The branding happened when I was 7. We were in Daytona Beach. I was on the sand, playing in the sun. It was the first time I remembered having my shirt off in front of my stepdad in a long time. Suddenly, a shadow fell over me. I looked up and saw him, his face contorted with kinetic rage. He looked at my chubby 7-year-old stomach and screamed, "You look like a fat monster." The truth was, I wasn't even that fat. I was 7 years old and maybe 10 pounds overweight. I was just a little bit chubby. But in his mind, I was a monster. He dragged me to a dim hotel room, gripped the fat on my stomach until it left purple bruises, shaking me and screaming, "Fat! Monster!" Then came the V8 juice. He force-fed it to me, that thick, metallic liquid, until I threw up on the carpet. That was the day the fuel for my depression was first ignited. For 21 years, I didn't see a human in the mirror. I saw the monster. Right after that trauma in Daytona, my mom had a complete mental breakdown. It was a horror. She became suicidal. She had a knife, and she had to be carried out of our house in a straitjacket. At that point, they gave her shock treatments. Those treatments were devastating. They changed her personality, taking something away from her that never quite came back. But even though the treatments changed her, her spirit was always there. Her incredible, unconditional love that she had for everybody, especially me and my sister, never wavered. Her big laugh and her loud voice were always there. Later on in her life, she evolved racially. She stopped using the N-word and moved past the bigotry of her upbringing. It made me so happy to see that happen to her. The cinema was where my soul finally woke up. In 4th grade, weighing 136 pounds, I saw Rocky. I was so deeply inspired by that story of the underdog that I went on a mission. I lost 40 pounds. I worked so hard that when I finally went back to school, my own teacher didn't even recognize who I was. I had completely transformed. Later, seeing The Breakfast Club was the second lightning bolt. It made me realize for the first time, it wasn't my fault. It wasn't my body that was the problem. It was the environment. Movies didn't just show me other worlds. They gave me the tools to reclaim my own identity. I escaped on my dirt bike at 11. In the woods, the monster label disappeared. Nature was the only place I could feel a profound, spiritual connection to something larger than myself. But I realized now that my freedom to roam those woods was pure white privilege. While Waverly was my home, we were surrounded by sundown towns, places where the very air was a threat to anyone who wasn't white. In real America, a black child couldn't just lose themselves in the woods. For them, the rural silence wasn't a sanctuary. It was a danger zone. My peace was a luxury bought by the color of my skin. I thought the woods were my only escape. I didn't realize that the world outside that double wide was already building a cage I couldn't bike my way out of. I was about to hear a sound that would echo in my gut for 35 years. Watch episode 2, The Soft Click, when prayer became a punchline to hear more.
Hi everybody, this is episode 2 that's coming up right now, and I wanted to tell you, if you haven't seen episode 1, you need to see that first. I highly recommend you do it in order. They're in chronological order, and there's an intro in episode 1 that kind of explains to you more about my story, my memoir, and how it ties into social justice and white supremacy in America in general. But episode 1 was great. People are really enjoying it, liking it. It's resonating, and I've got a lot of great positive feedback. So here comes episode 2. Hope you guys enjoy it. Thanks for watching.
Episode 2, The Tailwind Privilege, From Waverly to the SCAD Furnace. In Waverly, the N-word wasn't just a slur. It was the air we breathed. We were poor, we lived in trailers, and we were drowning in our own insignificance. We white kids used that word to create a floor beneath us so we wouldn't have to look at the abyss of our own poverty. But in 1981, the poison I'd been taught to swallow finally turned on me. My friend Doug called me with a plan. He was over at Magoo's house, Michael Washington's house. He said, "Hey, if you come over and spend the night at Magoo's tonight, we're all going to go out and build a fort." I remember the excitement of a young boy wanting to belong. I went and asked my mom if I could go sleep over at Magoo's. My mom's face went cold. She looked at me and said, "No, he is an N-word. You are not allowed to sleep over with N-words." I was a boy who wanted to be a man in her eyes. I wanted her to see me as loyal. Doug was holding on the line, and I went back to the receiver. I didn't know Magoo was on the extension, holding his breath, listening to me discard his humanity. I told Doug, "I can't come. My mom said she doesn't want me to spend the night with N-words." And then I heard it. The mechanical, soft click of the extension line hanging up on the other end. Magoo had been there the whole time. Doug's voice came through, hollow and heavy. "Hey." Magoo was on the other line. That moment was the first time in my entire life that I ever questioned my racism. I had used that word to protect a lie, never knowing that the boy whose home I was rejecting was listening to me. That sound, and the realization of what I had done to Magoo, would vibrate in my gut for 35 years. In the middle of all that darkness, I had a few rare lights that kept me from losing my way entirely. The first was my sister, Leda. My stepfather always accepted her. She was the acceptable one in his eyes. She was smart, she made good grades, and she was skinny. Because she hit every mark he set, she didn't catch the same hell that I did. She wasn't the target of his shaming or his abuse. But even though she was safe, she never turned her back on me. I'll never forget that night in Daytona Beach, right after my stepdad had finished traumatizing me, shaking me, calling me a monster, and force-feeding me that V8 juice. I was back in the hotel room, and I couldn't stop crying. Leda was only 6 years old, and even though she was the golden child who could do no wrong, she chose to stand by the brother who was being broken. She came over to me while I was sobbing and told me, "He is wrong. He's just a mean man." As a little girl, she did her best to defend me whenever she could. I don't know if I would have made it through without her truth. Then there was my best friend, my dog Brownie. He was a year old when I was 4, and he was my shadow all the way through middle school and high school. We did everything together. Swimming in the creek and playing in the yard. I have such vivid memories of us playing together in the wintertime. Brownie would grab my coat sleeve with his teeth and literally drag me all over the yard. Both of us lost in the excitement of the game. When we were finally worn out, we would find a patch of that warm winter sun and just sleep there together for hours on the ground. Dogs are the only truly safe harbor because they don't judge you. They don't care about your body, your intelligence, or your social status. Their unconditional love is a rare thing. They are fundamentally safer than people because they only ever see your heart. Brownie was my therapy long before I knew what that word meant. And of course, there was Jerry. We've been running together since the 5th grade. Jerry's middle name is Loyal, and he lives up to that name every day. He's the kind of man you can always depend on. When the shaming and the lectures at home became too much to bear, I could always escape with Jerry. We would jump on our motorcycles and vanish into the woods, laughing and cutting up until the world felt right again. Jerry was my oxygen. Between Lita's defense, Brownie's safety, and Jerry's loyalty, I found just enough oxygen to keep going. To survive the shame of home, I found armor in two worlds, acting and art. But the truth is, I was a very shy kid. I'm still a pretty shy man today. I've never really been good at just being myself. I've never felt truly comfortable in my own skin. But when I discovered I could mimic people, their voices, their mannerisms, their souls, I found a mask that felt like safety. Behind that mask, I felt comfortable. On the school bus, I would perform characters in comedy so relentlessly that I would get kicked off and have to walk home. I would imitate my teachers behind their backs, sometimes getting caught while they were standing right behind me. I'd get in horrible trouble and get paddled more times than I can count. But I'd take the hit and go right back to the character. By my senior year, even though I was still so shy, people actually begged me to perform. I didn't want the spotlight, but my classmates convinced me. I went out in drag as a cheerleader and performed comedy routines that made the whole school roar. Because of that, I was voted into the title of Most Wittiest Superlative. My peers chose me for that honor, celebrating the mask that let me step out of my shell. While the comedy was my mask, art was my sanctuary. I was obsessed with surrealism. When I was 16, I finally learned how to shade. That breakthrough changed everything. I wasn't just drawing lines anymore. I was creating depth and light. I started winning art contests, and that talent eventually carried me out of Waverly on a scholarship to the Savannah College of Art and Design, SCAD. In 1985, I arrived at SCAD and walked right into a psychological furnace. My roommates, Alan and Ward, were yuppie architecture majors from extreme wealth. They were superficial to the core, mocking my clothes, my shoes, my hair, and my personality. I became so deeply ashamed of my southern roots that I made a conscious choice to kill my accent. I lost it forever, and sadly, I began to talk more like them just to stop the dismantling of my soul. The isolation was crushing. I didn't just miss my family, I missed Brownie. Without my therapist, the daily bullying, the always something pressure, was agonizing. When I would kneel by my bed to pray, Ward and Alan would stand there and laugh, turning my conversation with God into a punchline. They were the final architects of my despair, convincing me of the lie that I was fundamentally unlovable. I didn't want to be thin or wealthy like them, but I believed that because I wasn't, I was a defect, a monster, disqualified from love. This led to a 10-year black hole of depression from age 18 to 28, where every day was a struggle to feel like I belonged in this world. Ward and Alan were trying to bury me. I was drowning. I needed a miracle, and I was about to find it in 1988, in a dark room and a roommate named Reggie. Check out episode 3.
Hey everybody, this is part of episode 3 of my memoir. If you noticed, I'm being very personal and sharing a lot of things, being very transparent. I'm not really holding back. And episode 3, you'll see, is really very personal, maybe too personal for some. But I really get into the past and things that did in the past that I'm not too proud of, that I overcome. And I want to share these things with people because I want them to know, and you to know, if you've been through anything, you are not alone. And that's the whole idea. Episode 3 coming up right now. If you haven't seen episode 1 and 2, you really should, because you will not understand the context. And context is quite important. All right, enjoy. Thank you for watching.
Episode 3, The Dark Room Pact, Rooming with the Truth on Abercorn Street. I arrived in Savannah in 1985 as a 6-foot 4-inch ghost in my own skin. I was a country boy with a heavy accent who believed he was a monster, just looking for a place to hide in an art classroom. But before I could learn to paint, the streets of Savannah decided to teach me the truth about shame, survival, and a moment on Abercorn Street that changed my soul forever. This is how the monster finally found a compass. Let's talk about Savannah. From 1985 to 1990, I was a student at the Savannah College of Art and Design, SCAD. I arrived there thinking I was just going to learn the technical side of art. But the city was preparing to give me a much deeper, much more brutal education than any classroom could ever offer. The Savannah I lived in was vibrating with the frequency of the crack epidemic. You didn't just see the desperation. You breathed it in like thick, heavy air. It was on every corner, thousands of people caught in a cycle of total disappearance, while the rest of the world just looked right through them. I was 6 feet 4 inches, well over 300 pounds, and I was caught in a cycle of my own. I was walking those streets convinced I was a monster, still wearing the brand my stepfather had burned into my soul as a child. I was starving for a human touch, for some kind of warmth to break the ice that had formed around my spirit. But I didn't believe I had the right to even ask for it. I'd find myself in those Savannah strip clubs occasionally. Back in those days, the women were completely nude. I'd sit there in that dim, neon-soaked light, and I was terrified. My whole body would go rigid with nerves. I was so paralyzed by my own insecurity, so convinced that a monster didn't belong in a room where beauty existed, that I couldn't even force a smile. One of the dancers would come up to me, look right into my eyes and say, "Smile, honey, smile." But I couldn't. I was a ghost in my own skin, watching a world I didn't think I was allowed to join. In 1988, I finally lost my virginity. It had just rained, and the Savannah streetlights were reflecting off the wet pavement like liquid gold. Through all my extreme nervousness, I saw her standing on the corner, a young black girl, probably in her mid-20s. She was beautiful, and I'll never forget that dress. It was yellow with delicate little white flowers. She was a crack addict, struggling like so many others, but she was so gentle with me. She was patient while I fumbled through my fear and my total lack of experience. But even though she was kind, the truth of that night is that it felt like a transaction. It was robotic, it was mechanical. I was too young and too stupid to even know I needed a condom, but she was the one who provided it and looked out for me. Still, there was no real intimacy. There was no soul in it. I was desperately looking for love, for a real connection, but I could never find it because I had zero confidence. I felt like I was just going through the motions in a body I didn't even own. It wasn't a beautiful milestone. It was a hollow, mechanical event that left me feeling just as empty as I was before. I started a pattern then. When I could afford it and had $20 to spare, I'd pick up women on the corner. They'd get in my car, my heart hammering against my ribs, and we'd find a place to park. I'd lean the seat back, and she would give me oral sex. In the silence of that car, the shame felt absolute. I felt like I was betraying my own soul just to feel 5 minutes of a closeness that wasn't close at all. It was a terrifying, hollow way to live, always keeping one eye on the rearview mirror for the police spotlights to cut through the dark. Luckily, we never got arrested, but the weight of it stayed with me. Photography became my literal survival. I didn't hide away in a dark room. I lived on the streets of Savannah with my 35mm SLR. I walked those blocks day and night, taking pictures all over the city, capturing the raw, beautiful reality of a place that was hurting. I spent countless hours framing the world through that lens. When I developed my own prints, those 8x10s, they were beautiful. They were the only proof I had that even when I felt like a monster, I was still capable of seeing and creating something of worth. But back at the SCAD dorms, the air was toxic. The persecution from the entire dormitory was too much. It wasn't just Ward and Allen, those wealthy, yuppie architecture majors. It was the fact that they had successfully poisoned the entire floor. It was a collective assault on my spirit. They turned my southern roots, my strong country southern accent, and my weight into a communal joke. They'd even stand over me and laugh while I was on my knees praying, turning my private conversation with God into a public punchline. Then, one afternoon, I was walking down Abercorn Street. I remember every molecule of that moment. I remember exactly where I was standing and what I was wearing. The streetlights were casting that specific savanna glow over the pavement. And suddenly, it was as if something fell out of the sky and landed deep inside me. A sudden, violent clarity, an awakening. In that second, I saw the root. I realized that the elitism of those wealthy students, the cruelty of my stepfather, and the racism I was taught back in Waverly were all the exact same poison. They were all branches of a single system of human value. I saw the colonial blueprint of our entire culture, a machine designed to categorize, rank, and dehumanize so that people at the top can feel like kings. Standing on that street, I saw my life in the context of that system. I saw the fat phobia, the bruises my stepfather left on my soul while he screamed "Fat Monster" in Daytona. I saw the elitism, Ward and Allen using their status and wealth to mock my strong country Southern accent and my very existence. And I saw the racism, the soft click on the phone extension back in Waverly, the moment I used a slur to please my mother and heard Magoo's heart break on the other end of the line. I understood then that bigotry is a parasite, born from a deep, shivering sense of internal inferiority. People like Ward and Allen, and even my stepfather, were so terrified of their own insignificance that they needed to project inferiority onto me just to feel like they existed. I realized that racism, elitism, and fat phobia are all the same lie. Standing on Abercorn, I made a pact with God. I looked at that ladder of value and I chose to step off of it. I swore I would never participate in that filth again. I decided I would no longer be a product of my environment. I would be an individual. I would be an activist. The monster didn't die that day. You don't just erase 20 years of bruises and shame with one moment of clarity. But for the first time in my life, that monster had a direction. I found a way to take all that pain and turn it into a weapon against the very things that created me. I realize now that my suffering was the key component to this transformation. If I hadn't suffered, I don't know if I would have ever developed the empathy I have today. But it wasn't just empathy. That pain forged a passion against hate and bigotry that burned right through me. My suffering gave me the eyes to see what the world was doing to people, and it gave me the fire to stand against it. My soul finally had a compass, but I didn't know yet how hard the world was going to try and break it. My pact was about to be tested by a man who didn't trust me, a system that wanted to lock him away, and a reality of white America that I could no longer ignore. In the next chapter, I meet Reggie, and the theory of my awakening meets the hard, cold truth of the streets. Watch episode 4, Reggie and the System, coming soon.